Everyone, I'm so glad that you're here today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lisa Vanderveen, and I'm the Director of Admission at the Willow School. Our goal in creating this series of webinars that we've been hosting is really just to offer our expertise and support to both our Willow families as well as the greater community as we're all navigating this challenging situation at home with our kids. Today's topic was inspired by conversations we've had with our Willow parents who have had a unique opportunity under these circumstances to observe their children's organizational habits more closely than they have been when they're studying at school. And so Meagan Coy is going to talk to you today about executive functioning in our students. Meagan is our assistant head of school, and she's worn just about every hat that someone can wear at Willow for the past 10 years, including being a teacher and a parent to 2 Willow students, one who's graduating in a couple weeks. And she's now our assistant head of school. So if you guys have questions throughout this presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I will facilitate the reading of the questions at the end of the presentation. If for some reason we don't have time to cover all of them, Meagan or I will reach out to you directly to answer your questions. All right, Meagan, I will hand it over to you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to share my screen with you. All right. There you go. Can you all see that? Yeah? Lisa, can you see that? Yeah, great. Okay.
Yep.
So, all right, officially welcome to our webinar on supporting your child's executive functioning at home. So as Lisa said, you are in a unique position right now where you are certainly at home, probably observing your child do more work than you usually see your child work. Obviously, your child's usually doing the bulk of his or her work at school in front of your teachers. And now your child is home doing the work wherever, in your kitchen table, at your dining room table, in your family office. And, you know, perhaps you are noticing that your child is struggling a little bit with organization. Perhaps you are noticing that your child is falling a little bit behind with deadlines, is relying on you to really help things move along. Or maybe you're just here because you're interested in what executive functioning is. So regardless of why you're here, I'm hoping to give you some information about, gee, what is executive functioning in children? And hopefully you'll leave with some tips as to how you, as a parent, during this time where you're with your child more than ever, can help influence his or her executive functioning skills in a positive way. So let's first talk about what is executive functioning. Bottom line, it is a set of mental skills that we use every day to get things done. And these are skills that we as adults really take for granted. We don't really often think about them. It involves things like planning, prioritizing, setting goals, managing our time, you know, basically just getting things done. And, you know, you may not think about how these things happen in your life because you're old enough, your brain is developed enough that it just usually happens pretty efficiently and effectively. Some days you might have stronger executive functioning skills than others, but generally it's not something that you really are focusing on. But when we think about younger children, it suddenly becomes obvious to us as parents and as teachers that their executive functioning skills most likely are not anywhere near where ours are. So I want you to think about executive functioning processes as something that develops as we age, kind of like our reading skills develop or our writing skills develop. The older we get, the more practice we have, the more support and explicit instruction we get, those skills improve. And the same thing happens with executive functioning. So in fact, executive functioning is not fully developed in the brain until the ages of 23 to 26, which I know is very frustrating for some parents when they hear that. They're thinking like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. I'm going to have to wait until my child is that old to really pull it together. But yeah, in some cases, you're not going to see, their full executive functioning selves until that age. But the great news is that there are things that you can do to help support your child, and their executive functioning skills can be practiced and they can be learned, even though most schools do not explicitly teach executive functioning. So you may find that you're in a position where you can step in and really make a big difference in your child's life. So what are executive functioning deficits? These are behaviors exhibited by students who struggle more than others with their executive functioning. Remember, it is a developmentally learned set of skills. So you're not going to expect a 5-year-old to exhibit the same executive functioning skills as a 26-year-old. But regardless of where your child is along the spectrum, you might feel like he or she is just not really as organized, as efficient as his or her peers. And executive function deficits can be exacerbated if your child also has ADD. So they may lack a full understanding of their organizational abilities, and on top of that, they may be distracted by certain items in their room or their house or their thought processes, and that will, that just exacerbates the situation. The good news is that executive functioning deficits, are not correlated with intelligence. In fact, when students are examined, usually their intelligence scores show that they are at least average intelligence or above average intelligence. So we're not talking about an IQ or an intelligence issue here. It's just the set of skills. So let's talk about what it might look like if a child has executive functioning deficits. I want to just kind of play around with a scenario right now because I think it will really demonstrate easily what executive functioning deficits might look like. So let's say you have a daughter named Emmy, and it's Saturday morning, and today is Emmy's regularly scheduled soccer game. It's 9 o'clock, soccer starts at 10. And you might be saying from the kitchen, Emmy, today's soccer, please go upstairs, get your soccer shorts, your team shirt, and your socks. Emmy doesn't do anything. Emmy's hanging out on the couch. 10 minutes later, you might say, okay, Emmy, it's time to get ready for soccer. Go get dressed, come downstairs, get your shin guards, get your water bottle. 10 minutes, nothing happens, right? So now it's, where are we up to, 9:20? So you're starting to feel this sense of urgency. You have to get in the car in a half an hour to get to soccer. Emmy doesn't really seem to be motivated to be doing anything. You are the one as the parent who is feeling this bit of panic. You're the one who's trying to push things forward and make things happen, and Emmy's just hanging out, right? So at the last thing you might say, okay, Emmy, it's time to go to soccer right now. Get upstairs, please get your materials, get your water bottle. I'll meet you in the car in a little bit. Emmy still may not be doing anything. And so, you might have to step in and actually go and get Emmy's shorts, shin guards, cleats, and only then maybe will Emmy get off the couch, right? So that type of story may resonate with you a little bit. Here's another scenario. Maybe it's Tuesday, Emmy has science class, and she gets to school and she realizes that she left her lab report at home. She goes into her classroom and she sits down. The class is socializing for a few minutes, and then the teacher notices that Emmy doesn't have her lab report, but in addition doesn't have her lab goggles, doesn't have maybe some materials that she was supposed to bring for the lab, doesn't have her lab notebook, and asks Emmy to go out into the hallway and get her materials ready, right? Of course, Emmy's probably feeling badly. Geez, can't believe I showed up to class so unprepared. And then maybe a last case scenario would be Emmy has a long-term project that was assigned on Monday. It's due on Friday. Emmy comes to you in tears Thursday night saying, oh my gosh, I've got this project due. I'm completely overwhelmed. I don't know how to handle it. So those are 3 different scenarios that looks like a child might have executive functioning deficits. Of course, you know, there are other issues that could be involved in that, but that is a realistic executive functioning scenario. In all of those cases, Emmy was reliant on either you as the parent or the teacher or her peers to provide cues or prompts. So that's one of the big signs that your middle schooler or your, you know, upper elementary child may be having executive functioning challenges. So what else might you see? You know, your child could get overwhelmed or frustrated easily. Your child lacks organizational skills despite constant guidance. Your child tends to leave work to the last minute, causing panic and stress. So in other words, has difficulty planning ahead. Your child forgets to complete homework, loses homework, or doesn't hand it in, even if it has been finished. Your child may not know how to study efficiently for tests, leaves materials or homework at home or at school, or isn't able to get out of the house on time. And we could probably all together brainstorm some other behaviors that would exhibit executive functioning challenges, but that's a really good list just to kind of get us all on the same page. All right, so how can you as a parent, especially during this unique time where you are with your child more than ever, really help foster executive functioning skills? Now, a lot of people really only think about increasing their child's executive functioning skills by helping him or her to be organized, and usually organized with charts and homework planners. And all of that is really important. But I actually want to start by talking to you about something that usually isn't discussed when educators provide information with how you can help your child with executive functioning skills. And the first thing I want to talk about is helping your child to imagine or envision the future. A lot of children with executive functioning deficits have a difficult time thinking in their mind what the tasks look like that are ahead of them. So for example, in that case with Emmy, who needs to get to the soccer field, she was lying on the couch and she wasn't really thinking in her mind, okay, I need to go upstairs. I need to open up my bottom drawer to get out my soccer shorts and my shirt. I need to open up the top drawer and get out my socks. Then I need to go downstairs into the kitchen, open up the bottom left-hand drawer, get my water bottle out, walk over to the sink, fill up the water bottle, walk out into the garage, pick up my cleats, and get into the car. Okay? They're not going to go through all of that imagining or envisioning in their head. But this is something that you can teach them. The next tip I have is help your child be aware of cues from his or her environment, and that's called situational awareness. So a lot of children who have executive functioning deficits lack the awareness of the cues, either visual or auditory prompts that are happening around them. So in the case with Emmy walking into her class unprepared for her science lab, she didn't see that her peers had their lab goggles. She didn't see that her peers had their lab notebook or their lab notes or other materials. Had she had that situational awareness, she may have walked into the room unprepared, but she could have figured it out pretty darn quickly that she wasn't quite ready, and she could have gone out into the hallway and fixed that and come back into class and been prepared. Another example of lacking situational awareness is that example with the mom cueing Emmy repeatedly to get ready for soccer. It may not have been until Emmy's mom's voice got to the point where she was like, Emmy, we've got to go to soccer now, that Emmy finally was like, oh, mom wants me to get up and do something, right? So it was that lack of awareness. The next tip I have for you is that you can teach your child to use if-then self-talk. And so the easiest way to describe this is, again, to think about Emmy as she's trying to get ready for soccer. So if Emmy is using if-then talk, she might say something like this to herself. All right, if it's Saturday, then I know it's soccer. And if today is soccer and we're playing at the Fairmont field, it's probably going to be chillier than if I play down at the Oldwick fields. And because it's chillier, I'm going to grab my sweatshirt and I'm going to grab my sweatpants. And if it's soccer and my friends are there with me, chances are we might be able to go to get ice cream afterwards. So I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to ask my mom if there's a chance that she'll drive my friends and I to go get ice cream afterwards. So all of that if-then self-talk. And then finally, help your child understand the passage of time. And this is where, educators usually give you some feedback. And it's very important, but I wanted to make sure that I talked about those 3 other methods also. So in order to help your child really understand the passage of time and to get him or herself organized, you really want them to become dependent on schedules or planners. And this is what I recommend. There are so many different ways to do this, but this is what has always worked in my own household. And so I think it would probably work for your children as well. What you want to do is you want to make a schedule, either a weekly schedule or a daily schedule, that only shows the consistent time commitments that happen, if it's a daily schedule that happen on that day, or if it's a weekly schedule that happen every week. So in this schedule, we're only showing Monday and Tuesday just to save time on the screen. But ideally, this would either just be Monday or it would be Monday through Friday. And you'll see that at 7 o'clock every day of the week, Emmy wakes up. At 8 o'clock every day of the week, it's breakfast. Actually, let me say one thing before I go on. When I created the schedule, I made kind of a hybrid schedule to show what it might look like during this distance learning time where your child may be having Zoom classes, but also what it might look like when we are out of quarantine and our children are out and about in the world a little bit more. Okay, so in this case, Emmy has a 9 a.m. Zoom English class. Nothing's going on at 10. At 11, she has math. At noon, she has a full hour for lunch and recess. At 1, she has social studies. At 2, she has French. Nothing between 3 and 4. Between 4 and 5, she's practicing piano, and that's something that the family has decided they would like to see happen on a consistent basis. Nothing's happening between 5 and 8, and 8 o'clock is bedtime. So again, this is just the items on a schedule that you can rely on for being consistent. After you do that, you can make some photocopies of this and then pull out 1 copy a week or 1 copy a day if you're doing daily schedules, and now add in the needs or the details that are specific to that day. So right on top of that original schedule, the only thing that's different about this Monday schedule versus the last Monday schedule I shared is that Emmy now has soccer again. So soccer starts at 5:30. So you can put in soccer practice 5:30 to 6:30. But what you also want to do is add in driving or transition times. And the reason why that's important is because at the end of this, you're going to want Emmy to be able to see all of her free times. She might say to you, hey, I've got tons of time tonight because all I have is soccer at 5:30. But once you add in driving to soccer and driving home from soccer, or driving home from soccer and then going to get ice cream, she'll realize that those free times that she thought she had to complete work are actually not free times. So you're left with a schedule that's pretty crystal clear and shows where her work times are, where her relaxation times are, right? So now she can schedule in wants. So maybe between 10 and 11, that could be a time for her to get some homework done. Maybe between 3 and 4, your child might want to run around with the dog and, have some relaxation time. Does that make sense? All right, here's another suggestion. To help work on long-term projects, what you want to do is, again, rely on some type of calendar. This is a slightly different calendar that I am showing here. This might be something that you might want to use with slightly younger children, where it's just showing a blank schedule for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And what you want to first do is start by putting in when the project is due, and then highlighting that in some way, shape, or form. So in this example, this student is having a social studies project. The project is about Roman baths, and the project is going to be a scrapbook page that's due on Friday. So you ask your child to put in social studies, scrapbook page due, and then somehow highlight it, either with a highlighter or a green marker. You see that I've got a little green marker that's with little swirlies around that, and that just shows, okay, this is a deadline. Now ask your child to use that method about envisioning and say to your child, okay, your scrapbook page is due on Friday. I want you to visualize what you think you're going to have to do in order to complete this project. So your child may say, okay, well, first I've got to find images on the internet about Roman baths, and then I'm going to have to print these images, and then I'm going to have to glue them into a scrapbook, and only then can this project be due. So after your child kind of chunks the assignment into different pieces, him or himself, then you can place each project piece on a different day of the week. Now, often the teacher will chunk the work for the students, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to show up on your child's planner. So you need to make sure that whatever kind of organization method your teacher is providing, that it then ends up in your child's schedule. Otherwise, it may not happen. You can also help your child study for quizzes or tests. And just like we did with that Roman ancient baths scrapbook page, put the day of the quiz or the test on your child's calendar, and then make it stand out in some way. Highlight it, put swirls around it, whatever. So it's crystal clear. That is the day that this test or quiz is taking place. And then what you're really wanting to do is you're wanting to encourage your child to study over a period of days, not just the night before. And unfortunately, what happens is some kids will say to you, hey, I don't want to study for the whole week beforehand, because chances are by the time it gets to Friday, I will have forgotten what I studied on Monday. And that's actually a pretty valid reason. That might be the case for some kids. But what you want to show them is that there's more to preparing for a test or quiz than just the memorization aspect. So what we usually say to our kids is, you want to really divide it into 3 pieces. So the first piece of preparation for a test or quiz is to review your old quizzes, organize your notes, look over your study guides. So just to get all of the materials ready and organized and reviewed. The second step in studying for a test or quiz is to take all that material and turn it into some type of format that will help your child study. So maybe it's making flashcards, maybe it's rewriting your child's notes if that's a strategy that helps him or her. Maybe your child might want to add in the content in some kind of online quiz program. Like, you know, there's all these different online programs now that the kids like to use to help them study. And then finally, the night before the test, they can use whatever that was that they just made to study, or they can ask you for help in study. So you'll see now we took something that a child may have waited till the night before, and you've spread it out so it's less overwhelming, and hopefully your child will do better on the test or quiz. Here's another tip for helping your child study for assessments. You want to help them prioritize the content that they really need to focus on. Chances are there is material that they already know. And if you can omit some of that content that they already know, then they're going to end up with a study guide that's shorter and less overwhelming. So on the right-hand side, there is an example here of a Revolutionary War study guide. And these are the teacher's notes that she has given to the students. And this student has already gone through and decided what she knows, what she sort of knows, and what she doesn't know, just by putting a K next to the items that she knows, an S next to the items that she sort of knows, and a D next to the items that she doesn't know. And then you'll see that anything that's a K, you can just kind of ignore. You might want to read it over a little bit the night before the test or quiz, but it isn't information that this child needs to get bogged down by. And so often just narrowing down the scope of the studying helps an awful lot. All right. So this is a really important point, and it's the last point I'm going to make. I want you to think back to what I said at the beginning of this webinar and know that your child's executive functioning skills cannot be improved overnight. The more practice they have, the more coaching they have from you, the older they get, the stronger their executive functioning skills will be. But what you can do is utilize a method of working with your child known as the gradual release of responsibility. And in that case, you are working as a parent to provide a great amount of teaching in the beginning, and then you're going to gradually allow your child to take on more and more of the responsibility. So you're very involved up front, and then you slowly back yourself off. So let's think about how this would look with Emmy. So let's say it's that soccer day. And in this gradual release of responsibility method, you are very, very involved in helping Emmy envision what she needs to do to get ready. So rather than saying to her from the kitchen, Emmy, time to get ready, go upstairs, get blah, 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 you might want to sit down right next to her on the couch and say, okay, Emmy, it's Saturday. I'm going to show you what I would imagine in my own mind if I was going upstairs to get ready. And you can literally model for her. Okay, so I'm going to walk upstairs. I'm going to open my drawer. I'm going to get out my shirt. I'm going to get out my socks and blah, blah, blah. You know where this is going. but you are being very explicit and modeling for your child what you would do, right? In the case of helping modeling for your child how he or she would organize the planner, you're going to sit there and say, okay, you've got a quiz on Friday. Help me imagine what types of steps you're going to have to take in the next couple of days. And you are literally going to be scribing those steps down on a piece of paper, and then you're going to be writing those steps down into your child's planner. You're very involved in the first stage, okay? After you feel like your child really gets this, then you're going to slowly start to back off. And now you and your child can work together to implement these methods, right? So you're not saying, okay, you're good. Next time you have a test and quiz, you're on your own. I expect to see your planner all filled out. I expect for you to figure out what you needed to know in advance. And, you know, I'm going to come by and take a look at that planner, and I hope to see that you've got more than study the night before a quiz filled into your planner. So instead, you and your child can sit down together and you can say, okay, so let's talk about this together and see what exactly needs to happen. But hopefully you're going to see your child taking a little bit more responsibility than when you first introduced these skills. And then finally, when you feel like your child's got that, then you can sit down next to your child and just ask him or her to show you how she's implementing these methods. And you know what, if you feel like your child starts to falter a little bit, then you step back in and provide a little bit more support with the idea that you're going to wean yourself off again. And the last slide is just something we wanted to point out, that in our executive functioning ebook, we already have some documents that might be helpful for you. Planners, just materials that you can print. So if you haven't downloaded our ebook, you can go to our website and do this, and you'll see these pages at your fingertips, and hopefully they'll be helpful for you. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you got some great information. And of course, like Lisa said, if you have any other questions, feel free to contact us via email, and we can do what we can to answer your questions then. And enjoy the rest of this distance learning year for everyone. And we'll keep our fingers crossed that all of your kids are back in real school soon.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, everyone.